What's going on, everybody? Halo Drama here, back with another Commander deck that I own. Again, just like the random clicks videos, if anybody has watched them, sorry about the hiatus, but you know, life happens and that's more important. But in any event, in my absence, I've still been making decks. And so we're going to do a deck today or a video on the deck that I built with Meren of Clan Toth. Oh my god, I'm already biting my tongue and shit. I haven't done this in a while. But anyway, she is a 3/4 human shaman. Excuse me. That says whenever another creature you control dies, you get an experience counter. Another type of counter in the game of Magic for anybody that doesn't know. And at the beginning of your end step, choose target creature card in your graveyard. If that card's converted mana cost is less than or equal to the number of experience counters you have, you can return it to the battlefield. Otherwise, you can put the card in your hand. To me personally, Meren is, in my personal opinion, one of the best commanders of all time, especially if you're doing your graveyard strategy. Again, that's just me. That's just my personal opinion. Actually, let's check something real quick. Let's go on EDH Rec real quick. I just want to see. Real quick. There are, let me see, over almost 10,000 decks on EDH Rec with Meren, which I can completely understand. So I'm going to go through the deck that I made. I wouldn't say it was made hastily, but I made it. And for anybody who's watched any of my other deck making videos, I don't go out and get stuff initially. I make the decks with cards that I already own, and I just do my best. There's always room for improvement, you know, and I know for a fact that this deck could use some improvement, but I work with what I got. It's already been play tested a couple times, and it did pretty good. One of my friends already hates this deck, and I haven't even had it for that long. If you can get somebody in your play group to hate one of your decks, to me, that is hilarious. Because some of my friends have decks that I can't stand, but hey, it is what it is. But these the only order that these cards are in is the fact that I separated them between creatures, enchantments, sorceries, instants, and artifacts. There are no planeswalkers in this deck, so we could just get straight onto the creatures. And the first creature that is on my stack here is Mikaeus the Unhallowed. Costs 3 generic and 3 black. Is a 5/5 legendary zombie cleric. Has Intimidate. For anybody who doesn't know, Intimidate means it can only be blocked. It can only be blocked by artifact creatures or creatures that share a color with it. Whenever a human deals damage to you, destroy it. Make some of those human decks out there stop attacking you. Other non-human creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Undying. For anybody who doesn't know what Undying means, a creature with Undying, if it dies and it had no +1/+1 counters on it, you return it from the graveyard to the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. Mikaeus is awesome in its own right. It's always been a great card since it came out, and yeah, the card's awesome. I'm trying not to linger too much on one card, because then that just makes the videos longer. But as we get through the creatures, you'll see why a creature like Mikaeus is awesome in a deck like this. The next one that's on my stack here is excuse me, is Reclamation Sage. As a costs 2 and a green. It's a 2/1 elf shaman. When Rec Sage enters the battlefield, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment. Pretty self-explanatory what that does. And saying, like with a card like Mikaeus on the board, if somehow I sacrifice it or it dies, it's going to come back to the battlefield and it's going to destroy yet another target artifact or enchantment. Or if it's in my graveyard and I have at least 3 experience counters, I can bring it back from the graveyard and destroy somebody's artifact or enchantment if need be. So yeah, it's one of those gifts that keeps on giving in a deck like this. And let's see, the next one that is on my list here, oops, is Harvester of Souls, and another card I've liked for quite some time. Yeah, I think it's in almost every black deck I own. But I have to go through and check. But anyway, costs 4 and 2 black. Is a 5/5 demon. Has Death Touch. For anybody out there that doesn't know what Death Touch is, if this creature deals damage to a creature in any way, shape, or form, that creature's gonna get destroyed. Unless it's indestructible, and there's really nothing you can say about that. Indestructible is just that. But it also says whenever another non-token creature dies, you may draw a card. Notice it doesn't say non-token creature you control. If anybody's non-token creature dies, you may draw a card. And once you guys see more of the cards that are in this deck, you're going to see there are going to be creatures dying all over the place. Basically, the point to the deck is that I be the only person who has stuff on the board, and I just destroy everybody else's stuff. But again, we will, as I progress through this video, you will see the theme play out quite nicely, if I say so myself. And the next card that I have on my stack here is Ravenous Chupacabra. Yeah, almost bit my tongue on that one. Costs 2 and 2 black. Is a 2/2 beast horde. And when Ravenous enters the battlefield, destroy target creature an opponent controls. Pretty cut and dry. It comes in, it blows some shit up. If it dies and I have Mikaeus on the board, or say if I have 4 more experience counters, it's going to come back from the graveyard and it's going to blow some other shit up. Yeah, pretty cut and dry there. Let's see. Next, I have Burnished Heart. Burnished Heart is a 3 generic drop 2/2 artifact creature. Elk has an ability you can pay 3 and sacrifice it, and you can search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. And abilities like this work with Meren, because sacrifice my own creature still counts as a creature dying. So if I can get this out and use its ability or whatever, and Meren's on the board, I get an experience counter. If for some reason I'm desperate for lands or whatever, and I have 3 or more experience counters at the end step, I can put Burnished Heart right back onto the battlefield and go get more lands with it. Yeah, they come in tapped, but you know, it is what it is sometimes. Let's see. Next that's on my stack here. Oop. Is Nantuko Husk. Nantuko Husk costs 2 in the black and is a 2/2 zombie insect that has sacrifice a creature. Nantuko gets +2/+2 until end of turn. This isn't in here so much that I can boost its power, which don't get me wrong, I still can, and I have still attacked people with this. It's more in there for the free sack outlet. I can do this at any time. Your turn, my turn, anytime I want. I can sack a creature just so I can build up those experience counters. Or I can sack a creature, I keep bringing up Mikaeus, just to, if a creature has an ETB, they enter, the ETB trigger happens, I can sacrifice them to this. This gets +2/+2 with Mikaeus on the board. If that creature didn't have a +1/+1 counter, it will come back with a +1/+1 counter, and this ETB can happen again. ETB means enter the battlefield, in case anybody doesn't know. So yeah, it's pretty much just in here so that I can have a free sack outlet. Gonna need a few of those in this deck, and I have a few of them in this deck. Let me see. The next one that I see here. okay. Thought I spelled it wrong. As Viridian Emissary. Cost 1 and a green, is a 2/1 elf scout. Looks like an elf mutant or some shit, but anyway. When Viridian Emissary dies, you may search your library for a basic land card, put on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. There are going to be a couple things in here that do stuff like this just so I can ramp, and it being pinned on a creature rather than like an instant or sorcery is always better because I can get the creature back. And yeah, this is another one of those cards that can fall right under that free sack outlet. Go get a land, possibly bring it back, sack it, go get another land. Because I call this because I know I have the burner shard in here, and I know there's more things in here to do that. Just like the reclamation station, destroys instant sorcery, there's going to be more things in here that do that too. You got to have a backup plan to the backup plan. This says Commander. It is a singleton format, so that does not mean that you're going to come across these cards all the time. So sometimes you have to put a couple in there that do the same kind of thing, just so you can hopefully get your trick off. The next one that's on my stack here is, oh my god, it is a 6 slime. Excuse me. Costs 3 and 2 green, is a 2/2 ooze. It has death touch. When it enters the battlefield, you can destroy target artifact, enchantment, or land. And I have used this already once to wipe all of my friends' lands out. It is amazing. But as the versatility of it, it does kind of suck that it costs 5, but this is Commander. And as you saw at least 2 of the mana ramp cards I have in here, and that's not going to be it. And obviously, enters, you get to do that. If it dies somehow, you can bring it back, whether with the Undying or at the end step, because you may or may not have 5 or more experience counters, you can bring it back and you can just start popping off lands, especially a lot of those pesky non-basic lands, and there's plenty of those. We all know this, but yeah, I like that. The next one I have on my list here, excuse me, is Caustic Caterpillar. Costs 1 green, is a 1/1 insect, and you can pay 1 and a green and sack it, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Just like I said, a backup plan to the backup plan. Another way that I can pay and sack it, I can get another experience counter, and I can also destroy more artifacts and enchantments. And yeah, again, depending on how the game is going, I can just do this over and over and over again until nobody has any artifacts or enchantments. Well, as long as I have the mana to pay for it. But you know how this game goes. Let's see. The next one on my list, another card that I am almost certain is in almost every black deck I have, and it is Viscera Seer. Viscera Seer is a 1-drop, 1/1 vampire wizard that says you can sacrifice a creature and scry 1. Period. Yet another free sack outlet, and you get to scry out of it. For anybody who doesn't know what scry means, it means you get to look at the top card of your library, and you may put that card back on top of your library, or you may put it at the bottom if it's something you can't really use. Because Viscera Seer is obviously a card that can get played on turn 1. And say if the second turn you play something like, say, that Viridian Emissary, say if I played a green land and played that, I could sack that. Granted, yeah, I'm going to end up shuffling my library, but, okay, so that really wasn't a good example. I'm sorry, because you'd end up scrying and then you'd end up shuffling. But you guys get the general idea. At any time, you can sack a creature, just so you can scry 1. And it helps Meren get more experience counters. Well, Meren doesn't get them, you do, but you know what I meant. Let's see. Next one that I have here is a card I knew was going to end up in this deck, and that is Sakura Tri-Builder. I call it Sakura, probably because I watched a lot of Naruto. It might be pronounced Sakura, I don't know. And if it is pronounced Sakura, it's because I've also played a lot of Street Fighter. But anyway, costs 1 and a green, is a 1/1 Snake Shimon. At instant speed, just like a lot of these, you can sack it. And you can search your library for a basic land card, put on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Pretty self-explanatory. You can get another experience counter. You get another basic land. Machias is out. Oh my God! If Machias is out, you can sack. It'll come back. You can sack and go get another land and get another experience counter. Yeah, I feel like that speaks for itself. Let's see. Like I said, I'm trying my best not to linger on a card too long. That way the video's not super long. Let's see. The next one is Blood Throne Vampire. So it costs 1 in the black. It's a 1/1 vampire. Just like the Nantuko, sack a creature, and it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Yet another free sack outlet. Yes, I can use it to boost this and swing at somebody, or use it to defend, depending on how big the creatures you have coming at me, or whatever. But it's just yet another free sack outlet. Oh, and also I should mention, just like the Nantuko house, it just says sacrifice a creature. So it can sacrifice itself to its own ability because it is a creature. It doesn't say sacrifice another creature. So if need be, yeah, you can sack this to itself. And just the point is to just build up those experience counters. That way you just keep bringing stuff back for free. Let's see. Next that is on my stack here is Farhaven Elf. Costs 2 and a green. Is a 1/1 elf druid. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land, put on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Self-explanatory. Comes in, gets lands. If it dies, possibly comes back, go get more. Let's see. I missed it. Go back. I don't know what that is, but the next card that is on my stack here is Fertilid. Let's go with that. Costs 2 and a green. It's a 0/0 elemental, but it enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. You can pay 1 and a green, remove a +1/+1 counter on. Target player searches their library for a basic land, puts it on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Another way to go get more lands. And it can just be a chump blocker, If depending on, you get it late game, then that ability is kind of irrelevant. But notice it says target player. I don't know why you would choose one of your opponents unless you had something on the board that would help you advantage from them playing or, putting lands on the battlefield. Be real good in Two-Headed Giant though. You can remove one of those counters and let your partner go get a basic land out of their library. Maybe they need some help color fixing, and this would help just that. So yeah, just another way to get lands. And one of the gods of this deck, and I'm so glad I own one of these. And it is Sheoldred, Whispering One. I don't have that art, but that is awesome. Let's go with the one I do have. But anyway, Sheoldred, Whispering One, costs 5 and 2 black. Is a 6/6 legendary creature praetor. Has Swamp Walk. For anybody who doesn't know, that means if you go to attack, say with Sheoldred, if defending player controls a swamp, then Sheoldred's unblockable. Says at the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. That's nasty in its own right, and it won't matter the mana cost. You can return any of them. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, that player sacrifices a creature. Sheoldred is the shit, always has been. It's one of those cards, if I'm playing against it, I want to get rid of this immediately. And when I put it on the board playing against some of my friends, and they make it like their life goal to get rid of Sheoldred, which I think is hilarious. But it's also very understandable. Sheoldred is the shit. Let's see. Next. Okay, I see where I'm going. Next on my stack here is Brindleboar. Costs 2 and a green. Is a 2/2 boar. You can at any time you can sack it and gain 4 life. The 4 life part, that's cool. It just depends on what kind of deck you're playing against. Because if you're playing against a deck that's, let's say a Voltron deck that's blatantly trying to kill you with commander damage, that 4 life means nothing. But it's another free sack outlet. That 4 life could come in handy, you know. Like I said, it just depends on what you're playing against. You never know what you're playing against sometimes. Well, all the time. Yeah, just another free sack outlet for more experience counters. Remember, like I said, I just make this stuff out of cards I already own. There's always room for improvement. I'm aware of that. But just built it on some slick shit because I knew Meren is an awesome card. And the next one I have on here is Dawn Treader Elk. Costs 1 and a green. Is a 2/2 elk. You can pay 1, sack it, search a library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield, tap. Falls under the category of the same card you've seen already before this. Comes in, gets a land, can possibly get you multiple lands over the course of a game. Here is a card. You know, there are certain cards, like you hear the name of them, and someone's just like, oh my god. This is one that gets my friend Don, my friend D Square, over from the Omega Level Nerds YouTube channel. Whenever I even utter these words, I always hear him make a noise and it makes me laugh, and that's Fleshback Marauder. It's a 2 and a black. It's a 3/1 zombie warrior. When Fleshback Marauder enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a creature. Fucking love this card. And with cards like Macias and Meren, you can just keep bringing this thing back over and over and over and over again until nobody has any creatures but you, and that's generally the point. Because I can't speak for everybody, but I know usually when I play Fleshback Marauder, unless I want to keep it on the board for that 3 power or something, I usually just sacrifice Fleshback Marauder because it can sacrifice itself to its own ability. And like I said, with Macias and Meren, cards like that on the board, you can just keep bringing this thing back over and over and over again until, like I said, nobody has any creatures but you. And the next card on this deck, is pretty much a carbon copy of Fleshback Marauder, just in orc form, I guess. Merciless Executor costs also 2 and a black, is also a 3/1. It's an orc warrior, does the exact same thing. When it enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a creature. Falls under the exact same strategy. I can just keep bringing this thing back over and over and over again until nobody has any creatures but me. Next, there is Gravelighter. People are going to get sick of me, I know. Gravelighter costs 2 and a black, but this one's a 2/2 spirit. And it has flying. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card if a creature died this turn. That's awesome. Otherwise, each player sacrifices a creature. Just another one of those ways. I can either keep drawing cards, or I can just keep making everybody sack their creatures. Yeah, that one's kind of a 2-for-1. Well, not 2-for-1. You're gonna get one or the other. But either way, depending on the scenario, they're both great. Not to mention, say if you played this first and everybody sacrificed a creature, if this had Undying or with Meren and I bring it back when it enters the battlefield, creatures died that turn, so I do get to draw a card. So yeah, I guess it can, it can be a 2-for-1 in the same turn. So yeah, I recant my statement. Next one I have Butcher of Malakir. Costs 5 and 2 black, is a 5/4 vampire warrior with flying. Whenever Butcher or another creature I control dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature. Just another one of those ways. And yeah, if this is on the board and like say I have the Nantuko Husk or the Viscera Seer and I start sacking creatures, all my opponents are going to start sacking creatures. And yeah, you guys starting to get the theme of this by now? Yeah, I have everything and everybody else has nothing. And don't get me wrong, that's only if the deck plays correctly. You can play your whole game out and not find any of these cards. It does happen. It is Commander. The next one that's on my list here is Demon's Disciple. Yet another carbon copy, except this one's a human. Costs 2 and a black, is also a 3/1 human cleric. When it enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. So, yeah, it could be a handy way to get rid of pesky planeswalkers also. Especially if I've gone through these things enough that nobody has any more creatures. And they say they still have a planeswalker. You're not going to have any say-so on the matter. You're going to have to get rid of it. So, yeah. Let's see. Next. Next is Outland Liberator. It's a flip card, and initially you can pay 1 and a green, and it is a 2/2 human werewolf. And you can pay 1, sack the Liberator, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Another sack outlet for either the Undying or experience counters, and another way to destroy target artifact or enchantment. And it has the Daybound and Nightbound mechanic. It starts out as Daybound, obviously, and as you can see here, if a player casts no spells during their turn, it becomes night on the next turn, and when it becomes night, it flips over into Frenzied Trapbreaker, and it turns into a 3/3 werewolf. Still has the same pay 1 and sack it to destroy an artifact or enchantment, but it also has, whenever it attacks, you can destroy a target artifact or enchantment the defending player controls. So, booyah. You can get, now this can't, on the flip side, it can be a 2-for-1 as far as artifacts and enchantments go. You can attack said player, destroy their stuff, and then pay the 1 and sack it and destroy something else. If that's the case at the time. Magic is a game that I've said it's situational. It just depends on the board state and what's going on. Oh, and the Nightbound mechanic, for anybody who doesn't know, is that if a player, while it's night, if a player casts at least 2 spells during their turn, it turns back to day on the next turn. So, yeah, that's how the newer werewolves work. They have the Daybound and Nightbound mechanic. But yeah, another way to get experience counters, another way to abuse Undying, and another way to destroy artifacts and enchantments. There you go. Next one I have here is Vulturous Zombie. Costs 3 in Gogri. That's green and black if anybody hasn't put that puzzle together by now. And it is a 3/3 plant zombie. Has flying. And it says whenever a card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, put a +1/+1 counter on Vulturous Zombie. And what makes that awesome, I'm obviously not really milling in this deck, but if people's creatures dies, you put the counters on this. If they cast instant or sorceries, as soon as that card hits it resolves and that card goes to the graveyard, put a counter on this thing. Like I said, it says a card and it says from anywhere. Obviously for your opponents, obviously. So any cards go to their graveyards. It does not work for tokens, because tokens are not cards. But yeah, whenever a card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, it's a +1/+1 counter. Say if somebody has too many cards in their hand and they have to discard down to 7, this is getting a counter for every one of those cards that they have to go down to. And yeah, so that thing can just become a huge flyer. Let's see, what's next? It's actually one of the newer cards. And it is Phyrexian Vivisector. Costs 1 in the black, is a 2/2 Phyrexian human. Whenever a creature you control dies, scry 1. And a lot of my creatures are going to be dying all the time, and I'm just going to keep resurrecting them. And when that happens, I get to keep scrying 1 to possibly put better cards back on top of my library. That way I can draw them and continue to fuck shit up. So, yeah. Oh yeah, this is a card that, as I was looking through my cards to make this deck, I was so happy that I found. Where did I leave off? I'm sorry. costs 4 and a black, is a 3/2. It has Fear. That's a super old ability. Fear means it can't be blocked except by artifact creatures and or black creatures. When Shriekmaw enters the battlefield, destroy target non-artifact, non-black creature. Great ability, but it's in here because of this evoke cost. It has an evoke cost of 1 and a black. It says you may cast this spell for its evoke cost. If you do, it's sacrificed when it enters the battlefield. Here's the point to this, is that you can pay the 1 and a black, it enters, you destroy a non-artifact, non-black creature, and then you have to sacrifice it. So now you're getting rid of a creature, you're getting an experience counter. If it has Undying, you're gonna you're gonna destroy a creature, and you're gonna get it back, and it's gonna stay permanently. But you still get to destroy another creature. Or get with Meren, because you can't go off the evoke cost with this. You have to go off its mana cost. Is that if I have 5 or more experience counters, I can bring this back in my end step and destroy another creature. So yeah, this has great versatility in getting rid of shit in this deck. Obviously, unless I'm playing against an all black deck, then this is potentially useless. No, actually, it would be flat out useless. But it is what it is. How often does that happen? Not to say that it wouldn't happen, and if it did, then I would just have to live with the fact that I'd just be holding on to this card for the rest of the game. And the next card, also a newer card, that is fucking great, and that's Cankerbloom. I can see this card getting a ton of play, in my personal opinion. It costs 1 and a green. It's a 3/2 Phyrexian Fungus. You can pay 1 and sack it, and choose 1. Destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, or proliferate, which is actually, I've come to notice that that's what I use this the most. Because to me, this is one of those just better cards. Like, you have the cards that you can pay 1, sack them, destroy target artifact or enchantment. This one adds proliferate. And like I said, that's the one I've seen myself using the most, is the proliferate, to just keep upping those experience counters. And yeah, Cankerbloom. New card from Phyrexia, all is one, and that card is awesome, in my personal opinion. Here's a card that I've owned for a while and did not have a reason to use it. It was just in my trade binder, and then I made this deck, and I was like, oh. Then I made this deck, and I was like, oh, the card's awesome now. And it is Mezarek, Crawl Death's Priest. Granted, I could have tried to make a Decoratus, but I didn't want to. Costs 3 and Goguri. Is a 2/2 legendary insect Shimon. Has flying. Whenever a player sacrifices another permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. And obviously, you guys have already seen that I have many ways to make people sacrifice permanents, and I actually have more than that in this deck. We'll get to those. Yeah, I have many ways in this deck, that you've seen and not seen yet, to make people sacrifice permanents, creatures, and gems. Yeah. And as for all the ones that they do, all my creatures are just gonna get stronger and stronger. So, booyah. Let's see the next one. I do believe this is, it's newer, but not. Whatever. Anyway, just type it in. And it is. That's not the art I have, but that's actually pretty cool. Namada, Primeval Warden. What was this? Just borderless? What's the difference? Okay, whatever. Costs 2 and Goguri, is a 3/4 legendary tree folk. Has reach. For anybody who doesn't know what reach means, it means that it can block creatures with flying, without actually flying itself. And it states that if a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. When you do, create a 1/1 green sapling creature token. You can pay green and sack a sapling, and Namada will get +2/+2 until the end of turn. You can pay 1 and a black and sack 2 saplings to draw a card. I actually haven't gotten this out on the board yet. Like I said, it's Commander, it's a singleton format. You can play the same deck 10 times and sometimes not see some cards. But I'm more having in there for that first ability, that first little paragraph, that your creatures die, they get exiled. And obviously, as you guys have seen, I have many ways in this deck to make everybody lose creatures. And yeah, when they get sacked, they get exiled. You cannot get them back. So if I'm playing against a fellow like reanimate deck or whatever, they're not going to get those creatures back because they're exiled, and that's great. The other abilities are cool, but it's more in here for this. These are situational. Maybe I do need to draw a card. Maybe I do need to pump this up to maybe save me for taking a big hit or something. But hey, we'll see. Situational type things. Let's see. And I'm actually on the third to last creature. And let's see. And it is a lot less troll. Costs gold green, and it's a 2/1 zombie troll. It has trample, and at instant speed, you can discard a creature card and put a +1/+1 counter on a lot less troll. You can play a black and regenerate it. And for anybody who doesn't know what regenerate means, basically you can save it from dying. It'll end up tapped, but you can save it from dying. It's a super old ability. I don't even know if they make cards with regenerate anymore. But anyway, I like this because you can put, say, depending on how many experience counters you have, you can discard creature cards from your hand. This will get a counter on it, and you can mess around and discard something that that has a mana value equal or less to the number of experience counters you had. And at your end step, you can bring that said discarded card back to the battlefield. So this gets stronger, and then you get more board control. That's just how I look at it. And yeah, so that is why that is in here. And second to last creature, two creatures that I like a lot. And it is, booyah, Decay Undead Vizier, if I pronounced that right. Costs 3 and 2 black. Is a 4/6 legendary zombie Naga. It's a snake. Has death touch. Has the exploit ability, which means when this creature enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a creature. And it says when Decay exploits a creature, you may search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So if it exploits a creature, you get to tutor. And the thing I love about Decay is that it says exploit a creature. So you can sacrifice Decay to its own ability. Don't get me wrong, I love that 4/6 stat with death touch. But you can sacrifice one of those sapling tokens, like the Viridian Emissary, so you get to tutor and you go get a land. But you can sacrifice Decay to itself to tutor. And if it falls back to that. If it has Undying, you get to do it again. If you have 5 or more experience counters, you get to do it again. So Decay is the shit. Always has been since it got printed, in my personal opinion. And the last creature in this deck might shock a couple people, but I own one, so I was like, why not use it? And it's It That Betrays. It That Betrays is a 12-drop, 11/11 Eldrazi. Has Annihilator 2, which means whenever this creature attacks defending player, sacrifices 2 permanents, which is amazing. And also says whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent, put that card onto the battlefield under your control. So it can make you It That Betrays can make them sacrifice stuff that you're gonna get. And you've already seen a lot of the cards in that, where I'm not done with them yet. You've already seen a lot of the cards I have that make my opponents sacrifice stuff. Say if we have a full game and this is on the board, there's 4 people on the board, and I say I play Fleshbag Marauder, and all 3 of my opponents have to sacrifice a creature, all those creatures are mine. As long as they're not tokens. And yeah, obviously with the ramp I have in here, I can get this. I can get it out of the graveyard. Yeah. It That Betrays. This card's fucking amazing. Alright, that is all for the creatures. So I'm going to go into the enchantments now, which there are actually only 4. So this should be covered pretty easily. And the first one is Death Reap Ritual, costs 2 in gold green. It has the Morbid ability. The Morbid ability triggers if a creature died this turn. I'm so used to saying but anyway, at the beginning of each end step, so that could be your opponent's also. If a creature died this turn, you may draw a card. So yeah, even if your opponents are going at each other and say they get blockers in, and some creatures get destroyed, guess what? If this is on the board, you may draw a card because a creature died. Each end step, and it doesn't matter whose creature. It doesn't say creature you control. So yeah, they can help you draw a lot of cards. And it doesn't say that only oh yeah, I guess it does only activate once, but still fun. Next one I have here is one of my favorite fucking black cards, and it's Zombie Infestation. Discard 2 cards, and you can't do that at instant speed. You create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. The 2/2 black zombie, that's cool in a deck like this, but it's mainly in there so that I can discard creature cards to my graveyard that I can potentially reanimate for free, might I add. So yeah, that is why Zombie Infestation is in this deck. And the last 2. Okay. One of them is Grave Pact. Costs 1 and 3 black. Whenever a creature I control dies, each other player sacrifices a creature. Yet another way that I'm making sure you keep no creatures on your board and I keep mine. And it's another sack outlet. So this is on the board, and if that betrays is on the board, and I make you guys sacrifice a creature, those creatures are mine, as long as those creatures aren't tokens. So, booyah. And the last one that goes right in the same category as that is Dictate of Erebos. Costs 3 and 2 black, has flash, so you can not cheat it into play because you still have to pay for it, but somebody does some goofy shit and tries to solo board wipe you, or maybe destroy 2 or 3 of your creatures, you can flash this in, and guess what? Everybody's sacrificing creatures. You're not just going to target me. Another way that, I keep stuff and you guys don't. And I think that's awesome. Alright, now, we are going to go into the sorceries of this deck. And the first one that's on the top of my pile here is Retrieve. Costs 2 and a green, and it says you can return up to 1 target creature card and up to 1 target non-creature permanent from your graveyard to your hand. And then you get to exile it. I liked this. The creature card thing's cool. Say if it's a low cost, it has a nice ETB or something. But it's mostly in here for returning the target non-creature permanent. Say if I have that Grave Pact on the board and somebody destroys it, this can get it back for me. Granted, you do have to exile Retrieve after that, but it is what it is. Sometimes that one-time use can change the course of the game. Let's see the next card I have in here, and you're going to see a lot of these kind of cards in this deck. And it is Increasing Ambition. Costs 4 and a black. What is that? Shadows of the Past. I don't know what that is. I have to look into that. I know about this one though, because it's from the Innistrad block, which is personally one of my favorite blocks of all time. That's just me. This because this one's from Dark Ascension. Anyway, costs 4 and a black. You get to tutor. You search your library for a card, put that card in your hand. If Increasing Ambition was cast from a graveyard, instead search your library for 2 cards, put those cards in your hand, then shuffle your library, and that's where this comes into play. Is that it has a flashback of 7 and a black. Granted, for anybody who doesn't know what flashback means, you can pay the flashback cost, get the effect. This one, whereas in this one says you can search for 2 cards, but then when you pay the flashback cost, you have to exile it. And I can see why it says the way that it's worded, because there are other cards that say you can cast a card from your graveyard. And if you do that with this, you get to tutor twice. It's just if you use the flashback cost, you have to exile it. But yeah, go get cards that you don't have to reveal. Who's going to argue with that? And that is right there. Natural Restoration costs 1 and a green, and you can return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand, and you can proliferate. Oh, I'm sorry if I didn't explain before when that Canker Bloom came up. For anybody who doesn't know what proliferate means, you can choose any number of permanents and or players, and then give each another counter of each kind they already have. So if your opponent has a -1, or if your opponent has a poison counter, or one of their creatures has a -1 counter, 2 of your creatures have +1/+1 counters, or you have experience counters. Any counters in any kind of way, you can add a counter of those kinds to said target or whatever, however you want to look at it. And yeah, that's how proliferate works. But yeah, this, like I said, if somebody destroys one of my 4 enchantments, or whatever the case may be, I can get them back with this. And if Meren's on the board, I can get another experience counter. So, yep, that's why that's here. I like it. I like it a lot. Next, like I said, you guys are going to see a lot of cards like this. Oh my god. Oh my god, apparently I can't spell this morning. It's morning where I am. Dark Petition costs 3 and 2 black. Search your library for a card, put that card in your hand, then shuffle your library. Has Spell Mastery. If there are 2 or more instant or sorcery cards in your graveyard, add 3 black to your mana pool. I was going to say that, but I'm glad to explain it. Yes, Spell Mastery. For a card that has Spell Mastery triggers if you have 2 or more instant or sorcery cards in your graveyard. So, you can use this to tutor up a card that costs 1, 2, or 3. Or something, that costs more. Maybe you have extra mana on the board. But either way, you get to add 3 black to your mana pool. So, if you do this with Spell Mastery, hopefully, if you tutor while you have Spell Mastery, hopefully you're taking advantage of that. The fact that you're getting 3 free black mana out of it, Let's see. Next card I have here is Victimize. Costs 2 and a black. Choose 2 target creature cards in your graveyard. Keep in mind, you have to have 2 target creature cards in your graveyard. If you only have 1 or you have none, you can't cast this spell, because you have to have the 2 targets. Then sacrifice a creature. Obviously, you'd have to have a creature on the board to do that. If you do, return the chosen cards to the battlefield tapped. So yeah, you get 2 creatures for 1. Sacrifice Zombie Infestation. Sacrifice one of those zombie tokens. And then get 2 bigger. The 2 you could discard two creature cards, get the 2/2 zombie, then cast Victimize, sack the zombie, bring back the 2 creature cards that you just discarded from your hand from Zombie Infestation. I used to have an old 60 card Reanimate deck, and that was one of the purposes of it, was to do exactly that. But anyway, next I have Dread Summons. Cost 2 black and X. X means you can pump any amount of extra mana into it that you see fit or that you can afford. And it states that each player mills. Mills means take the top card of your library and put it into your graveyard, for anybody who doesn't know. Each player mills X cards. And for each creature card put into a graveyard this way, you create a tapped 2/2 black zombie creature token. And again, it's a situation because it depends on what kind of deck you're playing against. Some people have decks, and I know I have a couple decks that if some of your creatures are gone, you're never going to get them back. Whereas in me, I don't care in this deck how many creature cards are in my graveyard because I know I have the potential of getting them all back at some point. Excuse me. So yeah, you can get a bunch of zombies out of it that you can sack for random effects, and yeah, you get to mill your opponents, and hopefully they have creatures that they're like, oh damn it, I needed that. Well, it's gone now. I don't know what to tell you. Let's see. Another new-ish card. Let's see. Tis Erdborg Repossession. Costs 1 black, and it has a kicker cost of 1 and a green. For anybody who doesn't know what kicker cost means, it means you can pay its mana cost and pay its kicker cost at the same time, and you'll get an extra effect. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. You gain 2 life. If this spell was kicked, return another target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. Another one of those cards, and if it's kicked, yeah, you get a 2-for-1 out of this, and that's very cheap to do something like this. It's another one of those. You can get 2 creatures out. If somebody maybe destroyed one of the lands you needed, you can go get that land back if you kicked it. If somebody destroyed one of my enchantments and I kicked this, I can get that enchant. I can get a creature and I can get an enchantment back. Yeah, I feel like this is very cheap, and it can affect that it's a common that you can mess around and get 2 thorough cards out of your graveyard. I don't care about the gaining 2 life part. That you can mess around and get 2 thorough cards out of your graveyard and put them back in your hand. Say like Grave Pact or Dictate of Erebos, because people seem to not like this. But anyway, next. Oh, it's right there. I have Demonic Collusion. Costs 3 and 2 black. Well, first of all, I'll just go in order. It has a buyback ability, super old ability for anybody who doesn't know. Any card that has a buyback cost, when you pay its mana cost, if you also do whatever its buyback cost is, in addition to paying its mana cost, you get to cast this card and put it back in your hand. When this buyback is discard 2 cards, which in this deck I obviously have no problem with, because I'd mess around and discard creature cards that I can get back. But it lets you search your library for a card, put that card in your hand, then shuffle. Sometimes you can cast this without buying it back. It is what it is, but in a deck like this, I'm discarding creature cards. So I'm going to go get to tutor something, and I get to get this back, so I can use it again at my leisure. Well, not at my leisure, as I can afford the mana cost, I should say. Or as I can afford the amount of cards that are in my hand. But, alright, next. I have tapping at the window. Tapping at the window. Costs 1 and a green. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from among them. Put it in your hand. Put the rest in your graveyard. It has a flashback. Costs 2 and a green. Now notice it says you may. You don't have to reveal anything. You just put them in your graveyard, and I want cards I want creature cards in my graveyard, I should say. But as you guys saw, I have ways of bringing permanents back. So again, it's another one of those situational cards. I just thought it was handy to help me get more stuff in my graveyard. A card that I feel like needs no introduction. Rampant Growth, costs 1 and a green. Search your library for a basic land card, put on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Self-explanatory. Next, I have Diabolic Tutor. Costs 2 and 2 black. Search your library for a card, put that card in your hand, then shuffle. Yep, you guys have already seen a bunch of these, and I know I have a couple more. So, yeah, tutor cards. Gotta love them. I put this in here just on some humbug shit. I may take it out at some point, but I don't know. Like I said, I just built the deck with stuff that I had. I know for a fact there's room for improvement, and I will get to that at some point. You know, you gotta build a deck, play test it, work out the kinks, you know, shit like that. No deck is 100% on first build. I don't care what anybody says, unless you net decked. Then if you did that, then you're not that good at this game anyway. But this costs 3 in Golgari. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature that died this turn. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Has a flashback of 5 in Golgari, which you can, depending on how many creatures died in the turn, you can mess around and get both of these just to cost green and black to return a creature card. I said have this in my hand and like say I have like the Grave Pact on the board. I sacrifice a bunch of creatures, and then everybody sacrificed a bunch of creatures. You can mess around and use this twice in the same turn, because it costs 1 less for each creature that died this turn. So it just depends on how many creatures died that turn. So yeah, my computer just freaked the fuck out for some reason. But anyway, I guess I'm back now, so let's move on to the next card, I guess. And the next card was Life's Legacy. I'm still tripping that my computer just freaked out like that, but it is what it is. Costs 1 in a green. As an additional cost to cast the spell, sacrifice a creature. You draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power. Obviously I like it for the sacrificed creature aspect, but I also like it for the fact that you could possibly pay 2 and draw an absolute shitload of cards. It just depends on what creature you have on the board and how strong they are. You know, what creature you sacrifice. Yeah, 2 mana, draw a ton of cards. Something like that. Let's see. The next card I have is Illicit Shipment. Costs 3 and 2 black, has casualty 3, which means as you cast this spell, you may sacrifice a creature with power 3 or greater, and when you do, copy this spell. And it lets you search your library for a card, put that card in your hand, then shuffle. So obviously if you cast this and you sacrifice a creature with power 3 or greater, which there are a few of those in here, you get to tutor twice. Again, who's going to argue with that? And not to mention that gets you another experience counter, and depending on the creature that you sacrifice, you can probably get it right back. So, yeah, there is that. Alright, next, another one that I feel like needs no introduction, but I own one, and I'm very happy about that. Wearing my cap locks on, I look like I'm yelling up here. But, Demonic Tutor. I definitely don't own that art, but that is amazing. Demonic Tutor costs 1 in a black. I'm pretty sure this is where the term tutor came from. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, you get to search your library for a card, put that card in your hand, then shuffle for 2 mana. That's insane. I'm pretty sure this is banned in a lot of stuff, but Commander's not one of them. So, and let's see, because I only have 3 more sorceries left, and one of them is Cultivate. Costs 2 and a green. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards. Reveal those cards. Put one on the battlefield tapped and put the other one in your hand. Just another way to get more mana. And possibly color fix, if you're stuck on green and you need a black. Or whatever color of whatever deck you're using. That's it, this one. Yep. Dryad's Revival costs 2 and a green. Return target card, any card, from your graveyard to your hand. It has a flashback of 4 and a green. Yet another way to get back cards that aren't creatures, because the creatures obviously have plenty of ways to get those. And the last one, oh no, second to last, I am tripping. And it is Gaze of Granite. Costs 2 black, a green, and X. Destroy each non-land permanent with mana value X or less. And with the way that I ramp in this, I will probably destroy the entire board. Again, unless it's indestructible. Just one of those backup plans. If things are going bad, and you just seem like no matter what you draw, you just can't get the advantage. That somebody's got a good board state on you, or whatever the case may be. Fuck it, destroy everything. It is what it is. Everybody, let's all start from scratch, if need be. And the last sorcery in here is Rise of the Dark Realms. Cost 7 and 2 black. Put all creature cards from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control. I don't think I need to explain how fucking awesome that would be if you can get that off. No homo. Everybody's shit. Yours. Alright, now we are on to the instance, which there actually are not there are not a lot of those either. This deck is pretty much just based on getting those creatures in the graveyard, but the first one is that I have is Harrow. 2 and a green. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sack a land, search your library for up to 2 basic lands, put them onto the battlefield. Not tapped, might I add. You just put them onto the battlefield. Yep, just another way to get lands, and that one's at instant speed, so yeah. Next I have Terra Sunder. Costs 1 and a green, has a 1 and a black kicker cost. Says exile target artifact or enchantment. If this spell was kicked, exile target non-land permanent instead. 2 to possibly exile a pesky artifact or enchantment? Cool. 4 to make you exile pretty much anything? Well, obviously not a land. Priceless. Well, not priceless, it would cost 4. You know what I meant. If anybody even remembers those old commercials. Come on. Next I have Sheoldred's Edict. Costs 1 and a black. I like cards with versatility. You get to choose one. Each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. Each opponent sacrifices a creature token, or each opponent sacrifices a planeswalker. The versatility there speaks for itself. Yeah. It's just another one of those cards that's situational to what you got going on. A card that I actually did not get that long ago. I got it earlier this year, I want to say. Pulled it out of a box. A Dominaria box, as a matter of fact. Oh, no. That's just the proxy. I'm sorry, I went way off. And it is Vampiric Tutor. Oh, it was the Commander Legends box. Yeah, that's where I got that from. Is a 1-drop instant. Search your library for a card, then shuffle your library and put that card on top of it. You lose 2 life, but whoop-de-fucking-do. Nobody cares about that 2 life. I care about casting that at the end of my opponent's turn and putting what I need to draw on top of my library. This card's expensive as hell. I was so happy that I pulled one, and then after using it a couple times, I can see why it's so stupid. Because you could just go tutor your answer and put it on top of your library and then draw it. Ridiculous. And this one is Abrupt Decay. Instant. It can't be countered. Yay, because counter spells suck. Destroy target non-land permanent with converted mana cost 3 or less. And needless to say, there's going to be a lot of those, and this can just flat out get rid of that shit. I likes it. I likes it a lot. All right, now on to the artifacts, which there are only 4 actually. But again, everything is always subject to change. I'm assuming most of us knew that the first one was a Soul Ring. 1-drop artifact, taps for 2 colorless. Almost every commander deck on the planet has these. I only say almost because obviously you can't assume what other people own. And I know for a fact that I have at least 2 commander decks that don't run a Soul Ring, and it's because they don't need to. Next is Phyrexian Altar. It's a 3-drop artifact. You can sacrifice a creature, add 1 mana of any color. So you can sack creatures to get to mana fix for you, and I want creatures in my graveyard. So this gets me more experience counters. If they happen to have Undying, they're going to come right back. I can sack them again, if need be, for the mana that I need. And yeah, this will fix you all day. And I have Phyrexian Altar, so I'm sure you guys, for anybody who's been playing this for a while like I have, I'm sure you probably realize that I also have, if I have Phyrexian, I more than likely have Ashnod's Altar, which I do. Ashnod's Altar is a 3-drop artifact as well. You can sacrifice a creature and add 2 colorless to your mana pool. Oh, that's a pretty cool. Like some Call of Duty 935 experimental shit, for anybody who knows about that. But same thing, you can sack creatures, get 2 colorless. If they have Undying, bring them back, or Meren's on the board and get more experience counters. And the last artifact that is in this deck is Swiftfoot Boots, because I'm almost positive I don't have any. No. I have 1 commander deck that doesn't have a Swiftfoot Boots in it. I'm almost positive. I'd have to go through them and look, but if they don't have one, they should have one. That pretty much every commander deck I have has a Swiftfoot Boots in it. It's a 2-drop artifact equipment. Equip costs 1. Equip creature has hexproof and haste. For anybody who doesn't know what hexproof means, it means it can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. Haste means it can attack the same turn it comes into play, or say if it's a creature that has an activated ability, like a tap activated ability. If it has haste, you can use that. And that covers the artifact. I'm not going to go through all the non-basic lands I have. I do have some, but most of them are, like Command Tout. If you're playing Commander and you don't know it, well, I can't say that, because everybody has to learn, just like I did. So I can't automatically assume people know what I know. I actually hate when people do that. It's actually very annoying. But Command Tower. I feel like any deck that has 2 or more colors should have a Command Tower. It's a land, and it taps for 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. Booyah. It's mana fixing on a stick. And I have a couple others, like they enter the battlefield tapped, but they also tap for green and black. But the 2, besides Command Tower, the other 2 that are like very important to me in this deck are Grim Backwoods. It can tap for colors, or you can pay 2 and Golgari, tap it, sack a creature, draw a card. So any of those dice triggers, such as Meren getting the experience counters, whatever the case may be, you can use this and you get to draw a card. And the other one is High Market. It taps for colors, and you can tap it and just flat out sack a creature and gain a life. This is used in a ton of strategies. I'm not even going to get into that. High Market is awesome. You can save your ship from getting exiled. That's just one of the strategies. But there's a lot of them. And in this deck, I really don't care about the gain life. but I do care about the dice triggers and stuff like that. So yeah, and that at the moment is my Meren of the, I keep saying of the, Meren of Clan Nail Toth deck. If you guys like the video, I hope, please leave comments letting me know the things that I can change. Like I said, I kind of built it was like maybe a few weeks ago. It's been play tested. It does pretty good, but I know it can be better. I just built it on some humbug stuff, and I only built it with cards that I already owned. I know one of the cards that one of my friends mentioned to me while we were playing one day was, and it's on my wish list, but I don't have it yet, and it's Eternal Witness. Old, super old art. Eternal Witness, 1 and 2 green, is a 2/1 human shaman. When it enters the battlefield, you may return target card from your graveyard to your hand. And on obviously with this put on a creature, with the Undying stuff, with my commander, you can do this over and over and over again and just keep getting stuff back. But like I said, yeah, it's on my wish list. I just don't own it at the moment. But that's gonna end this video. And I hope you guys liked it. The whole like, share, subscribe thing, I'm not going to beg. But anybody who does do it, I do greatly appreciate you. And like I said, please leave comments. Let me know things that you might put in this deck or ideas that you have. I like hearing different people's takes on stuff. But on to the next time when I have time. So until then, peace.